I stood at the altar in my white dress, hands trembling as I held the bouquet. Rick smiled at me, that same charming smile that made me fall for him 2 years ago. The officiant was talking, but I couldn't hear the words over the pounding in my chest. Something felt wrong. Really wrong. I, Rick, take you, Sarah, to be my lawfully wedded wife. His voice was smooth, confident, like he'd rehearsed this 1,000 times. Maybe he had. My stomach twisted into knots, but I forced myself to smile back. Everyone was watching. My mom in the front row dabbing her eyes. His family across the aisle. 200 guests holding their breath for this perfect moment. Except it wasn't perfect. And I was about to find out just how far from perfect it really was. You know that gut feeling when something's off, but you can't put your finger on it? That pit in your stomach that whispers, "Run"? I had it all morning. Brushed it off as wedding day jitters. Cold feet, normal bride stuff. I wish I'd listened. I need to back up a bit so you understand why this hit me so hard. I'm 31, a pharmaceutical researcher for a biotech company in Boston. I spent 7 years getting my PhD, another 3 building my career. I'm not someone who rushes into things or makes stupid decisions. At least, I thought I wasn't. Rick came into my life at a hospital fundraiser 2 years ago. He was funny, attentive, successful, or so he said. Owned a marketing firm downtown. We bonded over craft beer and terrible hospital coffee. He felt safe. Real. After a string of disappointing relationships and too many nights working late in the lab, finding him felt like finally catching a break. We moved in together after 8 months, got engaged at a 1.5 years. Everyone said we were perfect together. His best friend Tony was always around. They'd been buddies since college, and honestly, I liked having him there. Made Rick happy, and Tony seemed like a good guy. Protective, loyal. Turns out I didn't know either of them at all. The ceremony continued. Rick squeezed my hands, his palms slightly sweaty. Was he nervous too? Or was it something else? My maid of honor Holly stood behind me, holding my phone in her clutch like I'd asked. We'd been roommates in grad school, and she was the only person I trusted completely. Smart, observant, always had my back. For richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. Rick's voice didn't waver. I glanced past him at Tony, standing as best man. They exchanged a look. Just a quick glance, barely noticeable, but something about it made my blood turn cold. It was knowing. Secretive. The kind of look people share when they're hating something big. My hands started shaking harder. I tried to focus on Rick's face, on the moment, on anything except that growing sense of dread. The reception would start in an hour. Tomorrow we'd fly to Bali for 2 weeks. His dream honeymoon. He'd planned every detail. 5-star resort, private villa, couples massages, and sunset dinners on the beach. He'd been so excited about it. Too excited, maybe. The officiant asked for the rings. Tony stepped forward, reaching into his pocket. Another glance passed between him and Rick. Quicker this time, but I caught it. What were they communicating? What weren't they telling me? I felt Holly's hand on my shoulder. Just a light touch, but urgent. She leaned in close, her breath warm against my ear as everyone watched the ring exchange. "Sarah," she whispered, so quiet I almost missed it. "Check your phone. Now. Don't react." My heart stopped. Actually stopped. The room tilted sideways for a second, and I had to lock my knees to keep from swaying. Don't react. What could possibly be on my phone that she needed me to see right this second? At the altar. During my wedding vows. Rick slid the ring onto my finger. Gold band. Princess-cut diamond. We'd picked it out together last spring. His hands were steady. Mine weren't. "You may now kiss the bride." He leaned in. I closed my eyes and let him kiss me while my mind screamed at me to run, to grab Holly's hand and bolt down that aisle. But I didn't. I smiled. I kissed him back. And when we turned to face our guests as husband and wife, I kept that smile frozen on my face even though I felt like I was going to throw up. The crowd erupted in applause. Rice flew through the air as we walked down the aisle, his arm around my waist. Possessive. Proud. Like he'd just won something. The second we stepped into the bride's room for photos, I grabbed my phone from Holly's clutch. My fingers fumbled with the screen, smudging my fingerprints across the glass. "What is it?" I whispered. "What did you find?" Holly's face was pale. She'd been crying. I could tell from the mascara smudges she'd tried to fix. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry. She pulled out her own phone and showed me a text thread. Messages between Rick and Tony from last night. Timestamps showing they'd been texting until 3 a.m. while Rick was supposedly sleeping at Tony's place for the bachelor tradition. My eyes scanned the words. Once, twice, 3 times because my brain refused to process what I was reading. Rick. Bali insurance confirmed. It's 2M policy active tomorrow. Tony. Villa is isolated. No cameras on that side of property. Rick. Dosage. Tony. Enough for the fall to look accidental. Water's deep there. Current strong. Rick. And my 30%? Tony. Waiting in the account, just like we planned. The phone slipped from my hands. Holly caught it before it hit the floor. My legs gave out and I grabbed the counter to stay upright. The room spun. My wedding dress suddenly felt too tight, like it was crushing my ribs. There's more, Holly said, her voice cracking. Sarah, there's so much more. She scrolled to another conversation. Financial documents she'd somehow accessed, probably hacked, knowing her computer science skills. Bank statements showing Rick's marketing firm was bankrupt. Gambling debts totaling over $500,000. Collection notices, legal threats, and the insurance policy. $2 million. Life insurance on me, purchased 3 months ago without my knowledge. My signature forged. Beneficiary, Richard James Morrison, my new husband. They're going to kill you, Holly whispered, on the honeymoon. They planned the whole thing. Rick chose Bali specifically, that villa, that resort. He's been researching currents and drowning statistics. Sarah, they're going to make it look like an accident. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped out my lungs and left me with nothing. Those sunset dinners, the private villa, the romantic beach walks he'd been so insistent about. All of it was choreographed. Every single moment was designed to end with my death. How did you... I couldn't finish the sentence. My throat had closed up. I got suspicious last week, Holly said, wiping her eyes. The way Tony kept asking about the honeymoon plans. Super specific questions about your schedule, your swimming ability, whether you were a strong swimmer. It felt weird. So I followed him. He met with someone, some guy who handed him a package. I couldn't see what was in it, but they talked about the compound and water solubility. The compound. My pharmaceutical background kicked in through the panic. Water soluble. Fast acting. Something that would incapacitate me enough to drown but wouldn't show up, obviously, on a toxicology screen if they weren't looking for it specifically. Rohypnol, maybe. Or something similar. A benzodiazepine derivative. I looked at Holly, and something shifted inside me. The fear crystallized into something else. Something cold and calculating. They wanted to kill me for insurance money. They'd planned every detail, researched, prepared. But they made one critical mistake. I'm a pharmaceutical researcher. I literally create and test compounds for a living. I know drugs, dosages, delivery methods, side effects, and I know how to make someone very, very sick without killing them. Holly, I said, my voice steady now. I need you to do exactly what I say. Can you do that? She nodded, eyes wide. Good. Because we're going on that honeymoon, and Rick and Tony are going to regret ever thinking they could outsmart me. The photographer knocked on the door. Ladies, ready for family photos? I smoothed my dress, checked my makeup in the mirror, and painted on the biggest smile of my life. My new husband was waiting, my would-be killer, standing out there with his best friend, probably congratulating themselves on their perfect plan. What they didn't know? I was about to flip this entire game on them. Would you marry someone capable of this? Drop a comment. I need to know I'm not crazy for what I did next. The reception was beautiful, exactly what I'd dreamed of. Twinkling lights, elegant centerpieces, a band playing our favorite songs. Rick held my hand during dinner, feeding me bites of wedding cake, laughing at toasts from his family. Playing the devoted husband so perfectly that if I didn't know the truth, I'd have believed it myself. I watched him across the table, really watched him. Studied the way he smiled at guests, the way he touched my shoulder possessively when people came to congratulate us. Everything was performance. Every word, every gesture, every "I love you" was a calculated move in a game where I was the prize, or rather, my death was. Tony sat 3 seats down, already drunk on champagne. He kept looking at Rick, then at me, then back at Rick, like they were communicating in some secret language. At one point, he raised his glass to us both and winked. Actually winked. The audacity. Have you ever had to pretend everything's fine when your whole world is exploding? When every smile feels like glass cutting your face? That's where I was. Dancing with my new husband while mentally calculating pharmaceutical compounds and legal strategies. Holly caught my eye from across the room. She'd been working all night, quietly, carefully. While everyone danced and drank, she was gathering evidence, copying files, taking screenshots, building our case. "You look beautiful tonight," Rick murmured in my ear as we danced. His hand rested on the small of my back, fingers spread wide, claiming me. "So do you," I said, and meant it. He did look good in his tux. That's what made it worse. The packaging was perfect. The interior was rotten. "Can't wait for tomorrow," he continued, pulling me closer. "Just you and me in paradise." "Paradise," I echoed. My stomach churned. Tomorrow we'd fly to Bali. Tomorrow his plan would begin. The isolated villa, the romantic dinners. The moment when he'd slip something in my drink and watch me stumble toward that deep water with strong currents. Except that's not how tomorrow was going to go. Around midnight, Rick and Tony stepped outside for a smoke. I watched them through the window, heads close together, Tony's hand on Rick's shoulder. Celebrating, probably. Counting their money before they'd even earned it. Holly appeared at my elbow. "Got everything," she whispered. "Bank records, text threads, the insurance policy. Even found communications with the broker who forged your signature. Sarah, this is bigger than we thought. Rick took out loans against the insurance payout before you were even dead." "He was that confident," I said flatly. "There's more." Holly pulled me into the coat check room, away from guests. I did some digging into Tony's background. Found some interesting connections. He's got a record. Nothing major, but enough. Fraud, forgery. He's done this before, Sarah. Not murder, but schemes, cons. He's the one who found the insurance loophole. My hands clenched into fists, nails digging into my palms. "What else?" "Rick had a girlfriend before you. Serious relationship about 4 years ago. Her name was Jennifer. They were together for 3 years, planning to get married." Past tense. The way Holly said it made my blood run cold. "What happened to her?" "Died on vacation in Thailand. Drowning accident. They were on a beach, she went swimming, strong current pulled her under. Rick was supposedly 20 feet away, tried to save her but couldn't. Body was found 2 days later. The room tilted. I grabbed the coat rack to steady myself. He did this before. No life insurance on Jennifer. She was young. They weren't married yet. But, Sarah, the circumstances are almost identical. Remote beach, strong current. Rick being just far enough away to have an alibi but close enough to have been there. And Tony was on that trip too. They tested it, I whispered. They practiced on her. Holly nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "I'm so sorry. I know you loved him." Did I? Had I ever really loved Rick, or had I loved the version of himself he'd created? The successful businessman, the devoted boyfriend, the man who remembered my coffee order and surprised me with flowers. That person never existed. It was all costume, all set up for this moment. "I need you to do something else," I said. My voice sounded strange, detached, clinical. Like I was in the lab analyzing data instead of planning to stop my own murder. "Rick takes vitamins every morning, multivitamins, fish oil, vitamin D. They're in our medicine cabinet at home." "Okay. Tomorrow before we leave for the airport, I need you to go to our apartment. I'll give you my key. Replace his multivitamins with something else." "Sarah, what are you planning?" I met her eyes. "In my lab, we've been testing a compound for colonoscopy prep. It's safe, won't kill him, but it causes severe gastrointestinal distress for about 72 hours. Violent nausea, vomiting, dehydration. He'll be completely incapacitated." "You're going to make him sick," Holly said slowly. "I'm going to make him so sick he can't execute his plan. And while he's lying in a hospital bed in Bali, I'm going to search that villa. Find whatever drug they brought, whatever tools they plan to use. Collect evidence. That's dangerous, Sarah, if Tony's there. Tony's going to be arrested before we even land. I'm going to contact my lawyer friend Lisbeth tonight. Give her everything you found. She'll file a police report for insurance fraud and forgery. That's enough to start an investigation. They'll bring Tony in for questioning. Holly stared at me. This could go wrong in so many ways. I know. My throat tightened. But if I don't go through with the wedding, if I don't get on that plane, they'll know I know. They'll disappear. Maybe try again later, maybe move on to another target. I need them to think they're winning right up until the moment they lose. You sound like a different person. I am a different person. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, white dress, perfect makeup, bride smile. The old Sarah died the moment I read those texts. This is who I am now. We stepped back into the reception. Rick was looking for me, face lighting up when he spotted me. There you are. Come on. They're about to do the bouquet toss. I let him lead me to the dance floor. All the single women gathered behind me, giggling and pushing. I held up my bouquet, white roses and lilies, still fresh and perfect. Turned my back to the crowd. For just a second, I looked at Rick one more time. Really looked at him. At the man I thought I'd spend my life with. The man who'd planned my death with his best friend over text messages. The man who'd practiced killing his girlfriend and figured out how to profit from my murder. I threw the bouquet high into the air, watched it arc over the crowd. One of Rick's cousins caught it, squealing with delight. That's going to be you soon, Rick whispered to me, happy, excited, starting your life. Yeah, I agreed, a whole new life. After midnight, we finally left the reception. Rice and bubbles and cheers followed us to the car. Rick drove us home, our apartment filled with wedding gifts and honeymoon luggage already packed. He'd been so organized, so prepared. Tired? He asked as we walked inside. Exhausted. I kicked off my heels. My feet were screaming, but that was the least of my problems. I'm going to shower and go to bed. Big day tomorrow. Big day, he echoed, and something flickered across his face. Anticipation? Excitement? The look a hunter gets right before the kill. In the bathroom, I locked the door and leaned against it. Took deep, shaky breaths. My wedding dress suddenly felt like a straitjacket. I wanted to rip it off, burn it, destroy every reminder of this night. Instead, I carefully unzipped it, hung it up, went through my nighttime routine like it was any other night. Brushed my teeth, washed my face, put on pajamas, normal. Everything had to seem normal. I climbed into bed next to Rick. He pulled me close, kissed my forehead. Love you, Mrs. Morrison. Mrs. Morrison, his wife, his victim. Love you too, I whispered into the dark and felt absolutely nothing. I lay awake for hours after Rick started snoring. My mind raced through contingencies. What if the compound didn't work? What if Tony figured out something was wrong? What if I couldn't find evidence in the villa? What if they changed their plan? Around 3 a.m., I got up and went to my home office. Pulled out my research notes from the lab. The compound I'd mentioned to Holly, we'd been testing it for medical use, but it would work perfectly for this. Non-lethal, no lasting effects, just severe enough to be incapacitating. I knew the exact dosage, knew how to disguise it in vitamin form, knew how long it would take to kick in, about 6 hours after ingestion. If Rick took it at 6 a.m. before our 10 a.m. flight, he'd start feeling sick around noon. Right about when we'd be on the plane. By the time we landed in Bali, he'd be in full distress, too sick to hurt anyone. I drafted an email to Lisbeth, my lawyer friend from law school, attached everything Holly had gathered, explained the situation clinically, like it was a case study instead of my life. Subject: urgent, insurance, fraud, attempted murder evidence. Lisbeth, this is Sarah. I need your help. Please read the attached documents. File whatever reports are necessary to trigger an investigation into Richard Morrison and Anthony Russo. Time sensitive. I need this done before 10 a.m. tomorrow. I'll explain everything when I'm safe. Trust me, please. I hit send at 3:47 a.m., then I packed my carry-on bag with items Rick would never think to look for. Copies of all the evidence on a USB drive, a prepaid phone Holly would give me at the airport, and a small pharmacy of my own compounds, just in case I needed them. At 5:30 a.m., Rick's alarm went off. He rolled over, kissed me awake. Morning, wife. Morning, husband. The word tasted like poison. He got up first. Shower, shave, his usual routine. I heard the medicine cabinet open, the rattle of pill bottles. He always took his vitamins right after brushing his teeth, clockwork routine every single day. By the time I got to the bathroom, the bottles were closed, 2 vitamins missing from each. Holly had already been here, already made the switch. Rick had just swallowed his own downfall. "You excited?" Rick asked over coffee an hour later. "So excited?" I said and smiled. "This is going to change everything." He smiled back. "You have no idea." "Oh, but I did. I knew exactly what was about to change. How far would you go for justice? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear what you would have done." The airport was chaos. Weekend travelers everywhere, families with crying babies, business people rushing to catch flights. Rick held my hand tight as we navigated through security. Tony met us at the gate. Apparently he'd decided to see us off at the last minute. "Couldn't let you start your honeymoon without a proper goodbye," Tony said, hugging Rick like they'd be separated for months instead of 2 weeks. Over Rick's shoulder, Tony's eyes found mine. Cold. Calculating. He knew. Not about my plan, but about his. He knew exactly what was supposed to happen in Bali. "Thanks for everything, man," Rick said. "Really. Couldn't have done this without you." "That's what friends are for." Tony clapped him on the back. They exchanged that look again, the one I'd seen at the wedding. The one that said, "We're doing this. We're really doing this." I felt sick. Not from any compound, just from the sheer audacity. They were standing here in public saying goodbye, probably mentally counting their insurance money, like I was already dead, like it was already done. "Safe flight," Tony said to me and smiled. "Enjoy paradise." I wanted to claw that smile off his face. Instead, I smiled back. "Oh, I intend to." Holly appeared from behind a pillar, our signal. She'd been tracking Tony all morning, making sure he didn't suspect anything. She caught my eye and nodded once. The evidence was filed. Lisbeth had moved fast. Police were probably already looking for Tony. He just didn't know it yet. I gave Holly the tiniest wave goodbye. She mouthed, "Be safe," and disappeared back into the crowd. Boarding started at 9:45 a.m. We settled into our first-class seats. Rick had insisted on the upgrade, saying nothing was too good for our honeymoon. Now I knew why. Easier to drug someone in a private pod where flight attendants couldn't see clearly. Rick ordered champagne as soon as we were airborne. "To us," he said, raising his glass. "To us." I clinked my glass against his but barely sipped. I needed to stay sharp. The first hour of the flight was normal. Rick worked on his laptop. I pretended to read a magazine. The cabin lights dimmed as we reached cruising altitude. At hour 2, Rick shifted in his seat, pressed a hand to his stomach. "You okay?" I asked, all concerned. "Yeah, just... stomach feels weird." I hid my smile right on schedule. The compound was kicking in. By hour 3, Rick's face had gone pale. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He kept swallowing hard, that universal sign of fighting nausea. "Babe, you don't look good," I said, louder now. Getting the flight attendant's attention. "I'm fine." But his voice was strained. His hands gripped the armrests. "You're not fine." I pressed the call button. "You're pale and sweating. Did you eat something bad?" "No, I just..." He lurched forward suddenly, hand over his mouth. His eyes went wide with panic. The flight attendant appeared instantly. "Sir, are you feeling ill?" Rick couldn't answer. He was too busy dry heaving into the air sickness bag. His whole body shook with the effort of trying not to vomit, failing. "I think he's really sick," I said, standing up to give the attendant room. Playing the worried wife perfectly. This came on so suddenly. "Is there a doctor on the plane?" There was. A pediatrician from Seattle, 2 rows back. She examined Rick quickly while I stood by, wringing my hands. "Could be food poisoning," the doctor said. "Or a virus. His temperature's elevated. Heart rate's high. We should monitor him closely." Rick spent the next 6 hours violently ill, vomiting every 30 minutes, couldn't keep down water, couldn't stand without swaying. The flight attendants moved us to the back of the plane, where there was more space, more privacy. I sat beside him, holding his hand, stroking his hair. The perfect concerned wife, while inside I felt absolutely nothing. No pity, no guilt, just cold satisfaction that phase 1 of my plan was working exactly as designed. "I don't understand," Rick mumbled between bouts of illness. "I felt fine this morning." "How did this happen?" Sometimes these things just come on suddenly, I said softly. Don't worry. We'll get you to a doctor as soon as we land. But the honeymoon can wait. Your health is more important. I squeezed his hand. That villa isn't going anywhere. The villa? The isolated villa with no cameras on one side. The villa where Rick planned to drug me and watch me drown. The villa we'd never actually make it to because Rick was about to spend the next 3 days in a hospital. Karma, I thought, watching him retch into another bag. This is karma. We landed in Bali at 11 p.m. local time. Paramedics met us at the gate. I'd radioed ahead, insisting Rick needed immediate medical attention. They loaded him onto a stretcher while I gathered our bags, tears streaming down my face. Please help him, I begged the paramedics in my best distressed voice. I don't know what's wrong. We just got married yesterday. This was supposed to be perfect. We'll take good care of him, ma'am, one of them assured me. You can ride with us to the hospital. I climbed into the ambulance, still crying. Rick lay on the stretcher, gray-faced and miserable. He reached for my hand. I'm sorry, he whispered. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. I know. I leaned down and kissed his forehead. Nothing ever goes according to plan, does it? At the hospital, they admitted Rick immediately, suspected severe gastroenteritis. They hooked him up to IVs for dehydration, gave him anti-nausea medication. The doctor said he'd need to stay for observation, at least 48 hours, maybe more. Can I leave to check into our hotel and get some rest? I asked the nurse around 2 a.m. I'll come back first thing in the morning. Of course, your husband's stable. We'll call if anything changes. I kissed Rick goodbye. He was barely conscious, drifting in and out from the medication. Love you, I whispered. He didn't respond, just lay there, helpless and sick. Exactly where I needed him. I took a taxi to our resort, the beautiful 5-star property Rick had chosen so carefully. The concierge was apologetic about my husband's illness, upgraded our room as a courtesy, offered to help in any way they could. Actually, I said, I'd like to check our villa, make sure everything's ready for when my husband recovers. Could someone show me around? Of course, Mrs. Morrison. The villa was perfect, exactly as advertised, private, luxurious, stunning ocean view. And on the back patio, exactly where I expected. No security cameras, just empty space overlooking that deep water Rick had mentioned. Strong current visible even in the dark. This is where it was supposed to happen, where Rick planned to watch me die. After the concierge left, I put on gloves and started searching. Methodically, carefully, using everything I'd learned from true crime podcasts and my research background. Found Rick's bag first, extra clothes, toiletries, normal stuff. Then, in a zippered pocket inside the lining, a small vial. Clear liquid, no label. I held it up to the light, mind already analyzing. The viscosity was wrong for water, too thick. Pharmaceutical grade, definitely. I photographed it, documented everything, then kept searching. Tony's luggage was in the second bedroom. Apparently he'd planned to visit during our honeymoon. More like be here to help dispose of the body. Inside his bag, rope, weights, a detailed map of the ocean currents. Printouts about water temperature and body decomposition rates. My hands shook as I photographed each item. They'd been so prepared, so thorough. This wasn't impulse. This was premeditated murder, planned down to every last detail. In the bathroom, I found the final piece. Forged documents. A second insurance policy, this one even larger. Rick had plans to escalate. I wasn't going to be his only victim. I sat on the bed, surrounded by evidence, and started laughing. Couldn't help it. Here I was on my honeymoon, alone in a villa that was supposed to be my grave, holding proof of my husband's plan to kill me. The laugh turned into a sob, then another. Then I was crying for real, not performance tears, but genuine grief for the life I thought I was going to have. The marriage I'd believed in. The man I'd thought Rick was. That man never existed. And tomorrow, I was going to make sure everyone knew it. I pulled out my prepaid phone and called Lisbeth. It was 3 a.m. in Bali, which meant late afternoon in Boston. She answered on the first ring. Sarah, thank God. Are you safe? I'm safe. Rick's in the hospital. How's your end? Police brought Tony in for questioning this morning. He lawyered up immediately, but they have enough for a warrant. They're searching his apartment right now. Sarah, they found communications with someone in Thailand, someone who helped stage his previous girlfriend's death. This is bigger than we thought. I know. I found evidence here too. Photos, documents, the drug they were going to use. Lisbeth, they had rope and weights. They were going to make my body disappear. Silence on the line, then, get out of there. Get to the airport. Come home. No. My voice was steady. I'm finishing this. Rick needs to confess, needs to admit what he planned. And I'm going to make sure he does. Sarah, trust me, I know what I'm doing. I spent the rest of the night preparing, documented everything, sent copies to Lisbeth, to Holly, to 3 different cloud storage accounts. If something happened to me, the evidence would still exist. At 8 a.m., I returned to the hospital. Rick was awake, looking marginally better, but still weak. He tried to smile when he saw me. Hey, he said. His voice was hoarse from vomiting. Sorry about yesterday. Ruined everything. Don't be sorry. I sat beside his bed, took his hand. These things happen. The important thing is you're okay. Did you check out the villa? Is it nice? It's perfect. I met his eyes. Exactly what you described. That back patio especially. Beautiful view of the ocean. No cameras or anything, just privacy. Just like you wanted. Something flickered in his expression. Just for a second. Concern? Suspicion? Yeah, he said slowly. Privacy was important to me. I bet it was. I leaned closer. Rick, can I ask you something? About the insurance policy? His whole body went rigid. What insurance policy? The $2 million policy on my life. The one you forged my signature on. The one you and Tony planned to collect after I had my tragic drowning accident. The color drained from his face. His monitor started beeping faster. Sarah, I don't know what... Don't. My voice was ice. Don't lie to me anymore. I know everything. The texts, the gambling debts, Jennifer, all of it. Rick stared at me, mouth opening and closing like a fish. Like the fish I was supposed to become. How? He finally whispered. Holly found your messages. Did you really think you were being careful? You and Tony talked about it like you were planning a vacation. Dosage? Strong current, my 30%? You even used your real names? Sarah, listen. No, you listen. I stood up. Tony's already in police custody in Boston. They're searching his apartment right now. They know about Jennifer, about Thailand, about the insurance broker you used. And I have evidence from the villa, the drugs, the rope, the maps. All of it photographed and uploaded to my lawyer. You can't prove? I can prove everything. The only question now is whether you confess and maybe get a reduced sentence, or whether you keep lying and spend the rest of your life in prison. Your choice. Rick's face crumpled. It was Tony's idea. All of it. I never wanted to hurt you. You took out a life insurance policy on me. You planned the perfect murder location. You practiced on Jennifer. You were willing to watch me drown for money. I felt nothing. Just cold, distant satisfaction. You wanted to hurt me. You just wanted to profit from it, too. I'm sorry. He was crying now. I'm so sorry. I got in too deep. The debts were crushing me. Tony said this was the only way out. I didn't know what else to do. You could have asked for help, filed bankruptcy, done literally anything except murder me. The hospital room door opened. 2 police officers entered, followed by a detective from the Bali Police Department. Lisbeth had worked fast, coordinating with international law enforcement. Richard Morrison, the detective said, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and insurance fraud. They read him his rights while Rick sobbed, begging me to understand, to forgive, to help him. I stood there and watched them put handcuffs on my husband of 36 hours. Felt absolutely nothing. Mrs. Morrison, the detective said, we'll need your statement and all the evidence you've collected. Of course. I handed him the USB drive I'd prepared. Everything's there, including proof connecting him to Jennifer Chen's death in Thailand 4 years ago. Rick's head snapped up. How did you? I'm a pharmaceutical researcher, Rick. I know how to investigate, how to gather data, how to analyze patterns. You really thought you could outsmart me? I leaned down so we were eye level. You made one critical mistake. You underestimated your victim. They led him away. His protests echoed down the hospital hallway. I stood alone in the room, surrounded by beeping machines and the smell of antiseptic. My honeymoon suite, a hospital room where my would-be killer got exactly what he deserved. What would you do with your freedom? Leave a comment. I want to know. The trial took 8 months. 8 months of lawyers, depositions, media coverage. Rick's attempted murder of me made headlines. Groom's honeymoon, murder plot foiled by pharmaceutical researcher wife. My face was everywhere. My story dissected on true crime podcasts. Strangers sent me hate mail saying I should have forgiven him, and others sent flowers saying I was a hero. I wasn't a hero, I was just someone who refused to die. Tony cracked first, gave up everything in exchange for a reduced sentence. Testified about the Thailand incident, about how Rick had practiced killing Jennifer to work out the logistics. About the insurance broker they'd bribed. About the accounts where they'd planned to hide the money. About the detailed murder plan, down to the exact drug dosage and disposal method. The evidence was overwhelming. My photographs from the villa, the text messages Holly had recovered, bank records showing Rick's desperation. Jennifer's family hired lawyers too, pushing for charges related to her death. In the end, Rick was convicted on multiple counts: attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, forgery. The Thailand authorities charged him separately for Jennifer's death. He got 25 years for my case, another 20 in Thailand, sentences to run consecutively. Tony got 15 years as an accomplice. The insurance broker lost his license and went to prison for fraud. I sat in the courtroom every single day, watched Rick try to plead, to explain, to justify, heard his lawyer paint him as a desperate man who made a terrible choice, heard the prosecutor lay out exactly how calculated and cold-blooded the plan had been. This wasn't impulse, the prosecutor said during closing arguments. This was premeditated murder. Mr. Morrison spent months researching how to kill his wife and make it look accidental. He forged her signature on insurance documents. He conspired with his best friend to drug her, drown her, and dispose of her body. And when that plan failed, his only regret was getting caught. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, came back with guilty on all counts. Rick stared at me as they read the verdict, hollow-eyed, destroyed. I stared back and felt nothing. No victory, no satisfaction, just emptiness where my marriage used to be. Do you have anything to say to the defendant? The judge asked me during sentencing. I stood up, walked to the microphone. Rick watched me, tears streaming down his face. You could have killed me. I said quietly, you tried to kill me, and you would have succeeded if I hadn't been smarter, more prepared, and more determined to survive than you were to murder me. I hope these 25 years give you time to think about that, to think about Jennifer, to think about every woman you saw as a dollar sign instead of a person. I turned to the courtroom. To anyone listening, trust your instincts. That feeling in your gut that something's wrong, listen to it. It might save your life. Then I sat down. Rick tried to speak, to apologize, but the judge cut him off, sentenced him. Guards led him away. He looked back one last time. I didn't. The months after the trial were strange. I quit my pharmaceutical job. Couldn't go back to the lab where I'd unknowingly developed the compound that saved my life. Instead, I used the settlement money from suing Rick and Tony. Civil court awarded me significant damages. Everything Rick had, everything Tony had, plus punitive damages from the insurance company. I started my own pharmaceutical research company. Small at first, just me and 2 other researchers. But we focused on something important, developing affordable compounds for medical use. The same type of compound that had saved my life became the foundation of our business. Safe, effective treatments for people who needed them. 3 years later, my company was worth $10 million. We developed 3 new treatments, hired 15 employees, and partnered with major hospitals. My name went from woman who almost got murdered on honeymoon to successful pharmaceutical entrepreneur. But more importantly, I became an advocate. Spoke at conferences about insurance fraud red flags. Worked with state legislatures to close loopholes that predators like Rick exploited. Helped other women who'd been targeted by similar schemes. One case particularly stayed with me. A woman named Emma, engaged to a man who'd taken out a massive policy on her. She'd found the documents and didn't know what to do. I helped her gather evidence, connect with law enforcement, get out safely. Her fiancé went to prison. She started a new life. You saved me, Emma said after it was over. You saved yourself, I corrected. I just showed you the tools. Holly became my business partner. Her computer skills combined with my pharmaceutical knowledge created something powerful. We were unstoppable. I never remarried. Dated occasionally but kept walls up. Trust was hard after Rick. Some therapists said I had PTSD from the experience. Maybe I did. Maybe those walls were necessary. But I wasn't broken. I was different, harder, smarter, more aware of what people were capable of. I still thought about that night at the altar sometimes, standing there in my white dress, about to marry a man who planned to kill me. How close I'd come to dying. How one text message from Holly had saved my life. What if she hadn't been suspicious? What if she hadn't followed Tony? What if I hadn't seen those messages until it was too late? I'd be dead. My mom would be mourning. My friends would remember me as the bride who drowned on her honeymoon. Rick would be rich. Tony would be celebrating. And maybe somewhere down the line they'd find another victim. But that's not what happened. I survived. I fought back. I won. And 3 years after my almost murder, I stood in front of a room full of legislators, presenting a bill that would require both signatures for life insurance policies over $1 million. Require mandatory verification. Create safeguards so no one else could do what Rick did. Insurance should protect families, not enable their murders, I said. My case wasn't unique. It wasn't isolated. It was systematic. And we have the power to change that. The bill passed. Other states followed. Slowly, the system changed. I changed too. Found strength I never knew I had. Found purpose in preventing what happened to me from happening to others. Found meaning in survival. Some people asked if I regretted marrying Rick at all. If I wished I'd seen the signs sooner, walked away before the wedding. The answer was complicated. Yes, I regretted the pain, the trauma, the loss of my naivety about love and trust. But I didn't regret who I'd become. The woman standing here today, successful, strong, purposeful, she was forged in that fire. Tempered by betrayal, sharpened by survival. Rick was in prison, Tony was in prison, Jennifer's family had closure, the insurance broker who'd enabled them lost everything. And me? I was free. Not just alive, but actually free. Free from the lie I'd been living, free from the man who'd planned to kill me, free to build something real and meaningful from the ashes of what could have been my death. On the 3-year anniversary of my wedding that never was, Holly and I toasted with champagne in my office. To the worst wedding day ever, Holly said. And the best survival story, I added. We clinked glasses and drank. Outside my window, Boston stretched out in all directions. Thousands of people living their lives, loving their partners, trusting their friends. Most of them would never experience what I had. Never discover that the person they loved most in the world was capable of murder. Never have to choose between dying or fighting back. I hoped they never would. That's why I kept working, kept advocating, kept telling my story. But for those who did face it, for those women who found suspicious documents or overheard conversations or felt that gut instinct that something was terribly wrong, I wanted them to know, you can survive this. You can fight back. You can win. Your mind is your greatest weapon. Your instincts are your best defense. And your determination to live is more powerful than anyone's plan to kill you. Trust yourself. Gather evidence. Ask for help. And never, ever underestimate your own strength. I survived my wedding day. I survived the honeymoon that was supposed to end my life. I survived the trial and the aftermath and the rebuilding. And now, 3 years later, I didn't just survive. I thrived. Rick thought he could kill me for $2 million. Instead, I built a $10 million company and changed insurance laws across multiple states. I turned his murder plot into my origin story. That's the part they never tell you about survival stories. It's not just about staying alive. It's about what you do with that life afterward, how you transform trauma into purpose, how you use your pain to protect others. I thought about Rick sometimes, locked in his cell. Thought about whether he regretted his choice, whether he'd become a different person, whether he understood the magnitude of what he'd tried to do. Probably not. Predators rarely change. They just regret getting caught. But I'd changed. Fundamentally, irrevocably. The naive woman who'd stood at that altar was gone. In her place was someone stronger, smarter, more aware of how quickly everything could fall apart and how powerful you had to be to put it back together. My mom asked me once if I'd ever trust someone again, ever let someone close enough to hurt me? I don't know, I'd answered honestly. Maybe someday. But right now, I'm exactly where I need to be. And I was, running my company, helping other women, speaking truth to power, living a life that Rick had tried to steal but that I'd fought to keep. That was the real revenge. Not his prison sentence, though that helped. Not the money or the success, though that felt good. The real revenge was building a life so meaningful and impactful that his attempt to destroy me had ultimately made me unstoppable. I ended my last speech to a room full of insurance executives with this: my husband tried to kill me for $2 million. I survived and built something worth far more than that. Not just in money, in lives saved, laws changed, women protected. He tried to reduce me to a dollar amount. I became priceless. That's the power of survival. That's the power of refusing to be anyone's victim. And that's what I want every woman to remember. You are worth more than anyone's malicious plans. You are stronger than anyone's schemes. And you have the power to turn even your darkest moment into your greatest triumph. Trust your instincts, protect yourself, and never ever let anyone make you feel like your life is worth less than their greed. Thank you. The room erupted in applause. Executives who'd probably never thought twice about insurance fraud were nodding, taking notes, committing to change. I walked off that stage feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not happiness. That would take more time, more healing, more therapy, but peace. The knowledge that I'd taken the worst thing that ever happened to me and transformed it into something that mattered. Something that would protect people I'd never meet. Something that would outlive both me and Rick. He'd tried to make me a cautionary tale. Instead, I became a blueprint for survival, for fighting back, for winning. And as I drove home that night, past the city lights of Boston, past the life I'd rebuilt from nothing, I allowed myself to feel proud. Not of what happened to me, but of what I'd done with it. Rick was in prison. I was free. And every single day, I chose to use that freedom for something bigger than myself. That was my real honeymoon. Not Bali, not some romantic beach getaway, but this life I'd built in the aftermath, this purpose I'd found in survival, this person I'd become through fire. Some endings aren't happy, but some endings are right. And this one was exactly what it needed to be. Remember, your mind is your greatest weapon. Your instincts are your best defense. Trust yourself, fight back, survive. And when you do, build something beautiful from the wreckage. That's how you really win.